Good evening and welcome to the City of Burbank Police Commission meeting for July 15, 2026. I would like to call this meeting to order and begin with roll call.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Commissioner Coombs,
Present.
Commissioner Chapman,
Here.
Commissioner Hakobian,
Present.
Commissioner Elman,
Here.
Commissioner McKenna,
Here.
Commissioner Hartunian.
Here.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. And now we're going to move on to the flag salute. Paul, will you lead us in the flag salute?
Please rise to the appropriate courtesies. Join me as we say the Pledge of Allegiance to our flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay. At this time, I want to announce the public comment period will begin shortly. For community members here in person, please complete a speaker card, yellow or white, and hand it to staff. In-person speakers will speak first and have up to 3 minutes. For those wishing to phone in, please call 818-238-3335. Callers will be placed in a queue and will speak after all in-person comments have been received. And now we're going to move on to commission announcements and reporting out by commissioners and ad hoc subcommittees. And I'm going to start with James.
Nothing to report out. Nothing new.
Nothing for me.
Just that I attended with other commissioners sharing her retirement party.
Other than retirement party, nothing to report. Thank you.
And I don't have anything specific to report out except for attending Sherry's celebration ceremony and saying goodbye to her. And also, we want to welcome Evelyn for taking her place. Thank you so much for being with us today. And so now we're going to move on to public comments. So we're going to go ahead and bring in. Okay. So yeah, I'm going to. Okay, we're going to start the public comment period. So each commenter will have 3 minutes. So we'll start with in-person public comments. And first we'll have Max, and I apologize if I say your name incorrectly. I do apologize. Max Merserve?
Close enough.
Thank you. Come on up.
Hello, my name is Max Meserve. I'm just turned 20 and I've been a lifelong Burbank resident. I am one of the many Burbankians who has a daily commute that is intersected by a flock camera. Every time I see it, it's just kind of a reminder of this really disdainful and morally reprehensible company that is, in my opinion, making our communities less secure. I think that the LAPD has done an admirable, maybe not admirable, has done a job in stopping their function and further reviewing their security flaws. And I think Burbank should absolutely do the same. I have always had the pleasure of having good interactions with Burbank police officers. That's due to a lot of privilege on my part, but it's also, I think, worth commending. So I think for the force to continue being better, in my estimation, than the people who tear gassed me last summer, I think we need to be a lot more stringent on what we do with flock and move with much more alacrity, because I really want to see these cameras dealt with. They make me feel less safe, and they have innumerable security flaws. They're not a good tool. And then I was asking about making a second comment earlier, and that's just because, as related to the police chase policy, I was doing some campaigning, some door knocking earlier this month, and came across a resident who had sort of witnessed a police chase featuring some sort of like overhead units and an armored car. And I just wanted to forward her sentiments that it made her feel a little bit unsafe, and she thought it would be kind of a large waste of financial and police resources to go after someone like that. She was living on Pass Avenue, in case you have any idea which police chase that would be. So that's all. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And now we have Diana Day, followed by Maxine.
Hi, my name is Diana. I'm a resident of Burbank right here. I oppose the use of automatic license plate readers such as Flock in our community. Flock is a private company with private servers, and cybersecurity of the data it collects will always be at risk of a breach. Not to mention that over 20 cases of police officers using ALPRs to track down romantic interests or exes across the country. Burbank has spent over $750,000 on Flock and other ALPRs when there's no independent studies available on how Flock improves the efficacy of police work. All it does is tracking people down, and all it is a mass surveillance tool. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Now we have Maxine.
Good evening. I'm hoping that some of my neighbors will talk to you about concerns having to do with DHS and ICE relations, especially given some of the recent activities just this week having to do with traffic stops and ICE. I don't need to tell you that being in business with Flock Technologies and their shoddy data practices puts the city of Burbank at risk. I already did that for the city council. You can also do a simple query on the search engine of your choice, and the various controversies surrounding Flock and its practices will lay out a case much more clearly than I can in the 3 minutes I have today. What I want to use my time to do today is talk to you about ALPRs in general. I want to introduce you to the words indiscriminate and retrospective. What the cameras capture is only the surface level problem. It is the fact that they create a searchable database of all Burbank residents and visitors. Though they may use similar technology to red light cameras, these don't just take an image when an illegal infraction occurs. This is constant mass surveillance capturing the license plates of every car coming through Burbank. Using the data from the Flock portal, which doesn't take into account the other surveillance in the city, 1.5 million unique vehicles drove through Burbank in the last 30 days. 1.5 million vehicles coming to or through Burbank. And for what? Less than 1% of those cataloged resulted in a hot list alert. 0.007% actually, and that's rounded up. So if all this data collection isn't actually resulting in a meaningful impact on crime in Burbank, science has shown that the presence of cameras don't actually have a deterring effect on violent crime, and the crime rates have remained relatively consistent since 2011. Why are we paying for this service? We are paying for an indiscriminate and retrospective record of the movements of Burbank residents and visitors for the past 30 days. Just 30, as BPD is proud to point out. But this is already being questioned at the highest levels of the court. In her concurrence in United States v. Jones, Justice Elena Kagan made the point that even short-term surveillance can be incredibly revealing due to the existence of sensitive locations such as hospice, hospitals, therapist's office, immigration law offices, and more. That a searchable database exists is being used to train the AI of a company that has stated it doesn't actually care about safety and captures the actions of everyone moving in and through Burbank may not yet be unconstitutional. But it's just a matter of time. Stop paying for a service that doesn't have any noted, verifiable impact on the safety of Burbank residents beyond putting the city at risk for a lawsuit and its residents at risk of being a statistic in a misread or misuse case. Get Flock and all ALPRs out of Burbank. Thank you.
Thank you for your comment. And now we have Caleb.
Hi, Commissioners. My name's Caleb. I'm a Burbank constituent, and I'm yet another constituent that does not want to live in a surveillance state. I think among the many reasons already presented, I think it's shocking that Burbank residents did not get a say about the Flock camera systems being implemented, especially because of how much they violate our privacy. The data that Flock collects, the way it tracks movements, and is indiscriminate in doing so, is a clear violation of our civil liberties. That data, as has been mentioned, is not secure. So I'm also do not want my tax dollars to pay for a system that tracks my movements or that of my neighbors and sells that data, or even just houses it in a database that many organizations have access to, some of which I do not trust and which is not secure enough and could get out. So thank you for your time.
Thank you for your comment. Candace Myers.
Good evening, Commissioners. Thank you for having us. I'm here for two items that were not related to the agenda items, but I do want to say that I appreciate the current surveillance system that Burbank has because my husband was hit by a car in a hit and run situation, and because of the surveillance you do have, we were able, or the police were able to locate the person who hit my husband and ran and fled. And they were able to arrest him and charge him. So I just want to thank you for that. But the real reason I'm here are I have two questions. I live on South Spark Street behind Starbucks. We have a speeding issue, many vehicles, and there's been studies on the speeds of vehicles on our street. We average over 1,400 vehicles on South Spark Street, and over 85% of those vehicles are going over 35 miles an hour. So I just wanted to bring that to your attention and see if you can somehow enforce that law, if at all, or if there's any way you can help in that situation to make our neighborhood more safe. So that's the first item. The other item I wanted to address also is that there's late night deliveries on our street. I live at the end of South Sparks near Starbucks, and there's late night deliveries and late night equipment noises, just late night noises, and myself and my neighbors are constantly being woken up by these disturbances, and we've called the police, but the police officers they're not really able to do anything, and then they send us to code enforcement, but code enforcement isn't open at nighttime. So I'm finding myself in these like circular moments of like, I can't sleep and there's this noise. And so I'm here just to kind of talk about those two things, speeding and late night noises. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your comment. Next, we have Nolan Sutherland.
Hello, thank you for your time. My name is Nolan Sutherland. I've lived in Burbank for over 10 years with my family, and I do not want mass surveillance in my neighborhood. I don't want my daughters, who are teenagers, to be tracked, and even when they're older, I don't want them being tracked everywhere they go. I don't want my neighbors tracked, or my friends, my coworkers. My concern about mass surveillance is that no matter what your intention is, they are building data sets of all the movements that anybody does, and it is easy to abuse that. We know for a fact in the city of Burbank that audits have been lacking, that employees have retained access after they no longer work for the city. Data has been shared with outside organizations, which are outside of our control. Some of this is contrary to what the chief said at this very microphone in City Council. And we know that this is not the case because we have public records. Someone was able to get a public records request. I did send that in an email to all of you as well as the City Council members. I know that no matter what we try, systems are able to be abused. We also cannot control who is the next City Council, who the next Chief of Police is, who the next Burbank Police Commission is. So even if we deal with these few specific things, who's to say what the next person is going to do if we have built a mass surveillance system? Again, we've already been told false things by the chief. Maybe it was a mistake. Maybe he just wasn't familiar. Regardless, that is cause for concern. That means that we don't know what is going on with our system. So I definitely 100% would like to get Flock out of our city, as well as any other mass surveillance. Thank you for your time.
Thank you for your comment. Next, we have Amber Davis. Welcome.
Hi, everyone. My name's Amber. I've been a resident of Burbank for 9 years. I want to echo the sentiments of many of my neighbors and their concerns about flock cameras that have already been shared, and add my own. I'm asking you to remove flock cameras from our community and to reject all forms of ALPRs and other mass surveillance. Burbankers, Californians, and all people in the United States of America have a right to move through the world without being watched, logged, and profiled. The First Amendment protects not only what we say, it protects our freedom of association, our freedom to gather, organize, and to think without the government keeping a record of who we're near or where we've been. The Supreme Court recognized this in 1958 in NAACP versus Alabama, when it ruled that forcing groups to disclose their members chills the First Amendment freedom of association because it exposes members to threats and harassment, perhaps even from their own government. In 2018, in Carpenter versus the United States, the Supreme Court ruled that the government needs a warrant to access someone's long-term cell site location data. The 5-4 majority decision indeed recognized that tracking an individual's movements allows the government to map, quote, the privacies of life, where you worship, who you meet, what you believe, and that doing so violates the Fourth Amendment. But flock cameras are built to track where every one of us goes, every day, indefinitely. They use visual and audio data to build that exact type of record. Globally, we've seen where unchecked tracking and mass surveillance leads. In authoritarian regimes, mass surveillance is the infrastructure that murders dissent. Those systems didn't start as tools of oppression. They were introduced as tools of safety and efficiency, but yielded power that went left unchecked. Trading privacy for a weak, unproven promise of security will not lead to a different destination for us, not on a national level and not at the level of the individual community. A license plate reader doesn't just read plates. It builds a map of your life, your church, your therapist, your protest, your ex. Many of them also listen to your words. That map and that record, held by a private company, sold or subpoenaed, is a tool for control, whether or not anyone in this room ever intended it to be that way. In order for mass surveillance to be misused, to become a threat to a free people, it needs only to exist. Please remove flock from Burbank.
Thank you for your comment. And now we have Shonda Hughes.
I'm terrified of speaking in public. I've lived in Burbank since 1994, 93. So this tells you how important this is to me to show up. I've never come to a council meeting or a police commission meeting to speak. Like that. But I don't want to live in a surveillance state. I moved to Burbank with my son as a toddler because we had our own police department and it felt safe. And we've never had any problems living here. And everybody, this is a city of 100,000 people, which seems like a large city, but it's really a small town. When my son was doing something on the other side of town, I get a call from my mom. Hey, your son's on a skateboard without a helmet. You get home, I could bust him. You know, that's the kind of surveillance that I'm okay with. Moms watching out for the other moms, right? I don't want companies that I don't know having my information. I know we sign up for these phones. We all have signed up and we know what we're giving some data away. But I don't like being on camera. I don't want my picture taken all the time, everywhere I'm at. This is the first time I've done anything in front of a camera. So that's how much I don't want to be on camera in my own town that I've lived in for over 3 decades and felt safe until more recently. When you start seeing cameras everywhere and you feel like someone's watching you. I just can't live like that. And I don't think anybody should live like that. We all had to read 1984 in school. I'm doing all this off the cuff, so I'm just random free thought, do you all read 1984 when you were in school? Do you want to live in 1984, that book? Not the year. The year was great. The music was awesome. I actually want to quote a song from 1983 from another group of the police, who I still trust, the 3 guys, the band. Every breath you take, every move you make, every bond you break, every step you take, I'll be watching you. Every single day, every word you say, every game you play, every night you stay, I'll be watching you. Does that feel comfortable? Right? Okay, I mean, that's, I moved in Burbank because I was like, we have our own police department. It's great. It's not LAPD. But now I have to praise LAPD because they had the sense enough to get rid of flock. And Burbank hasn't yet. So that's all I have to say. Thank you. I can't believe I did that. Okay.
Thank you for your comment. And now we have Dan Kay.
Hello, everyone. Good evening, all you gentlemen on the Police Commission. I have been a Burbank resident for about 8 years now. I've been very active in Burbank for the past few years, and I've seen firsthand how much bureaucracy, how much involvement is required to get things passed. Fighting for strong tenant protections, trying to get accessible transit like the BRT system in Burbank. It takes years. It takes public meetings, community town halls, discussions, many meetings and discussions with Burbank City Council. And so it frustrates me to see that this mass surveillance system was kind of implemented behind our backs. There was no public input involved. City Council didn't even have a say. When it was up for renewal this past budget season a couple months ago, City Council was made aware that it was an item on the budget after it was already too late to cancel the contract. So that's a huge point of frustration that the public had no consent. We had no knowledge of this mass surveillance system in our community until, fortunately, some vigilant residents were able to find it and talk to council and bring it up. The other thing I'd like to say is I don't want mass surveillance in my community. I think there's a reasonable expectation when you're in public. Sure, maybe you might get photographed, you might end up in a video, but to step out of your house and from the moment you get into your car, everywhere you drive, everywhere you park, whether it's in Burbank, in the region, in the state, or even in the country, you're tracked every single place you go. There is no such thing as privacy as long as FLOC and ALPR and mass surveillance systems exist. So I would like to ask, I would like for you to urge that City Council agendize a real discussion on this situation, and I would like for the city to cancel their contract with FLOC, even if it means paying a penalty, and I would like to see these mass surveillance camera systems dismantled and removed from the city. Thank you.
Thank you for your comment. And now we have Katie M. Katie?
Hello, I'm a Burbank resident. I also am here because FLOC makes me feel unsafe. I don't come here today speaking in hypotheticals. I have had experience with tech companies misusing my own personal data. My photos from Facebook were downloaded by someone. I didn't want to have them and placed in a Google Drive for other people to access. I had made my Facebook account private. This was done using a loophole in the Facebook technology, and it was an extremely traumatic thing to happen. There's a FLOC camera right at the end of my street. It makes me feel unsafe every time sorry, you never believe I did theater in high school, right? It makes me feel unsafe when I just do anything as simple as leaving my home. I know that there are complications when it comes to canceling the contract. I know there are fees. I would much rather have my tax dollars go to ending that contract than continuing it. And I also just feel that the potential good that comes from catching criminals, from stopping the bad guys, isn't worth the potential for harm against your residents that aren't doing anything wrong. I trust my city. I don't trust a company. Please don't break that trust. Thank you.
Thank you for your comment. Now we have Yadi. Yadi?
Hi, I'm Yadi. I'm a Pasadena resident. I care about what's happening in Burbank because I love coming here. I bought my car here. I had my shoes repaired here, but don't ask which car and how many shoes I had repaired. Also, my personal information is collected by your cameras when I'm in Burbank, and just like residents, workers, and other patrons like myself, I'm a privacy advocate helping strengthen our privacy protections at the local, state, and federal levels, as well as regulating tech and AI. Before that, I was a tech co-founder, so I'm well aware of the limitations and negative externalities of tech. Robust regulatory frameworks and guardrails help drive responsible innovation, spurs competition, and gives consumers choice. As California consumers, we can enforce our CCPA rights to opt out of the collection and sharing of our data. The Constitution ensures law enforcement needs a warrant to access our homes and phones, yet there's nothing for ALPR or real-time crime center surveillance. I appreciate that the Commission, just like many cities across the country, are questioning the use of surveillance systems, something that we should have done before these systems were even procured in the first place. Perhaps instead of having a debate over the usefulness of these tools, we could have focused on the impacts on our civil rights, our democracy, and our quality of life. I agree with law enforcement and elected officials and those of you who have stated that these tools are useful. Indeed, there's overwhelming evidence that these tools have been great at stalking women. Perhaps if women, mothers, and people exercising their First Amendment rights in vulnerable communities most negatively impacted would have been consulted in advance, we could ensure that public safety doesn't end up oppressing a giant swath of the public. Please don't engage in ways to reform warrantless mass surveillance, and don't try to convince us that we need to be controlled and oppressed for our safety. That's dismissive, undemocratic, and against the spirit of our laws. There has to be a red line. What are you going to say when law enforcement wants to wear these creeper meta glasses on the guise of public safety? Also, you're probably working with the OIR group as your outside monitor. I ask that you be very, very clear in your request. Otherwise, you might end up like Pasadena's oversight commissions, who got an OIR ALPR audit, which read more like a memo, and instead look at the LA Office of Inspector General's audit, so that you can be very specific in your request. You, the city, and the public deserve the utmost transparency, and I would say that these flock cameras need to be turned off immediately until these problems are resolved, but actually don't bring them back. Thank you.
Thank you for your comment. Now we have Daniel Negrete. Daniel?
Hello all, my name is Daniel Negrete and I'm here with the Student Civil Liberties Union. The proliferation of government snooping and data collecting is threatening to destroy our traditional freedoms. Government agencies seem to be competing to compile the most extensive dossiers of American citizens. Computerization of records makes it possible to create cradle-to-grave records, profiles on all Americans. What you just heard was the argument in favor of Proposition 11 in the 1972 general election. Proposition 11 added the explicit right of privacy to the California Constitution. The right of privacy, quote, is the right to be left alone. It is a fundamental and compelling interest. It protects our homes, our families, thoughts, our emotions, our expressions, our personalities, our freedom of communion, and our freedom to associate with the people we choose. It prevents government and business interests from collecting and stockpiling unnecessary information about us. As others have mentioned today, the Supreme Court has further recognized the right to privacy in the whole of one movements. Just weeks ago, the court reiterated Jones' concurrent opinions and the decision in Carpenter, applying the same reasoning to their decision in Chattree v. United States. I would like you all to further review the Senate Judiciary Committee's report on SB 34, which regulates ALPR systems. Quoting and analyzing Justice Sotomayor's concurrent opinion years before the court even adopted that reasoning in Carpenter. Further, Civil Code Statutes 1798.90.53 requires that all ALPR systems regulate, use, and disseminate ALPR information consistent with civil liberties. Flock systems are not compatible with this statute and with constitutional interest. Across the nation, there are dozens of constitutional lawsuits against flock companies and cities who have been using these systems. What Burbank is doing is opening themselves to lawsuits because they are actively violating every citizen's constitutional interests. These systems record where you go, where you participate in expressive activities, where you go to seek health care. As the EFF has reported, these systems have been used to track people coming in from out of state to seek reproductive care. They've been used dozens of times to search for people involved in protests and other expressive activities which are also protected by constitutional interest. I'd like you all to take this into account. These ALPR systems are not just a tool for safety. They're a tool to violate every citizen's right to privacy. Thank you.
Thank you for your comment. Now we have Liam M. Welcome.
That's a nice sound. Hello, I'm Liam. I live here in Burbank. Flock is bad. Mass surveillance is bad. I think we're all kind of on the same page because we're normal human beings. Just want to focus in for a second on, I think there's a lot of very valid, large-scale concerns about the software and the way these systems are used, which are all valid and we do need to talk about, but I think if we could, for now, focus in on the hardware, which we as citizens can see, it's less opaque to us than the software and how the stuff is used, and just cancel the Flock contract and get the physical cameras out of here, that would be a great first step, and then we can talk about the other important stuff of usefulness or whether or not we need this and all of the grander concerns about civil liberties and stuff. But for now, let's cancel that contract. I would love if my tax dollars went towards paying any fines or whatever sort of hooks the system has to stop people from getting rid of something they obviously don't want. Would rather pay for that than continue to fund it. So let's get the hardware out. We'll deal with the rest of it after that. Thank you very much.
Thank you for your comment. Next we have Humaira. Did I say that right? Welcome.
So the Los Angeles Office of the Inspector General just released its review of LAPD's use of license plate reader system, and it confirms many of the things that people have been warning about regarding the use of Flock and other systems. And I actually have a copy. That's how important I thought it was. I encourage you to read it. I'm going to focus on the data in the report that underscores the issues regarding inaccurate information with the Flock cameras. First, it's important to understand that Flock Safety refuses to release any information about how often their system misidentifies cars. A Flock representative said in a meeting in Iowa in September that the system has a 90% accuracy rate. But then Flock turned around and said that the rep misspoke and that the accuracy rate is in the high 90s. Did the rep in Iowa really misspeak, or did Flock just not want that 90% number out there? A 90% or even a 95% accuracy rate may sound great, unless you're one of the people who gets pulled over and has a gun pointed at you or a police dog attack you because the vehicle you're in has one of the 10% or 5% of plates that are misread by Flock. There are many documented cases of people being pulled over and held at gunpoint because of Flock errors. Sometimes they're even put in jail for days, if not weeks. When Flock's AI cameras misread plates, innocent people pay. There's some data on the error rate in the LAPD report, and I'm just going to highlight one statistic. In Los Angeles, there were 161 false Flock alerts for stolen cars in just 2 months. Were the people driving those vehicles pulled over and treated as car thieves? That information is not included, but it's a scary thought that they might have been. So an average of 161 misidentified stolen cars over 2 months adds up to nearly 1,000 false alerts from ALPRs over a year in LA. Every other city using Flock can expect the same issue with errors. Keep in mind that someone pulled over because Flock misidentified their car as stolen is going to be treated with a different protocol than someone getting a ticket. They're going to be treated as felons, not just as a driver going too fast. My husband personally experienced being held at gunpoint on the ground by police due to an error with police data. It was not a Flock error, but it was nonetheless a data error, and I would tell you he was really traumatized by that experience. It was like 40 years ago, and he remembers it vividly. He had nightmares for weeks but he was lucky that there wasn't a worse outcome. The use of ALPRs like Flock
Your
cannot
time is
be
up.
fixed
Thank you for your
or
comment.
reformed. No to Flock, no to all
Thank you
of
for your
them.
comment. Next, I would like to bring up Deborah Zavitka. Welcome.
Yeah, my name is Deborah Zvitka, and I am a Burbank resident. At the present time, I oppose the City of Burbank using Flock cameras because of two concerns. Privacy. Flock is a private company that collects and stores its information on cloud data sharing devices and sells information. It's unclear what audits and guardrails and regulations are enforced in the sharing of that data by the City of Burbank, the Burbank PD, and the State of California, some of which may be unlawful. Monetary. The Burbank PD has not shown that there is a monetary benefit to the use of the cameras in criminal investigations versus just taking images of all the license plates passing through the city every day. Thank you very much.
Thank you for your comment. Next, we have Alex Mogolian. Welcome.
Hi, thank you for having me. I'm 22 years old, a Burbank resident, and my parents have also lived here 30 years prior. To begin, Burbank pays Flock $250,000 a year to scan 18 million plates, in which less than 0.04% result in a police follow-up. Not an arrest, a follow-up. Of the 0.04%, only 230 lead to an actual arrest. This represents a hit rate of 0.001%. Remind yourself of that number next time you convince yourself that the system is efficient. This information was obtained early in 2026 via the California Public Records Act. And in addition, a further record in January 2026 unveiled that 3 former employees still had access to Flock camera database and had to be deactivated at the time. To restate, we are currently paying Flock our taxes as the city in Burbank faces a historic inflation, cost of living, and public service demand. Flock began in 2017 with 2 Georgia Tech alums who built their first surveillance camera together and quickly thereafter began illegally attaching them to public utility poles and DOT cameras without permits or permission. In doing so, they were able to bypass democratic input and any standard oversight, just as they have here in Burbank. This idea of ask for forgiveness, not for permission, is something at the core of their brand. They do not need permission to share data with immigration enforcement, and even in cities where they explicitly deny doing so, and cities with strict reporting standards such as Mountain View, Cerritos, and Ventura County, they have broken these rules and have all sent data to the feds. All this has been independently reported and corroborated by Yahoo News, the ACLU, ABC News, Fox News, the Institute for Justice, and more. A few quotes from the CEO. I say privacy is the wrong question. It's really about trust. And to us out here that would oppose Flock, he calls us a terrorist organization. As for other notes, Flock Nova is their new experimental AI app/database that combines all camera data and police data into one hub for mass scoring, tracking, and execution based on nothing more than amorphous data that is ingested without accountability. There are dozens of videos online showcasing amateur YouTubers and data miners hacking into Flock's safety network and accessing sensitive information, audio portions, camera feeds, and highlighting the unprecedented ability that any person could have to track another person's livelihood for weeks at a time. All of this information was easy to find. Imagine what else is being kept private by a major corporation that knows it has diminishing public support. A reminder to all on the council, if someone is stalked, robbed, harassed, threatened, or worse, you will all be on the record for having known about it and approving it anyways. Thank you for your time. I appreciate it.
Thank you for your time. Next, we have Joel Schlossman. Come on up, sir.
Would you please turn off these cameras here because I value my privacy? And Chief, would you please stop communicating with state, federal, and other local law enforcement agencies because you're gaining an unfair advantage on potential criminals who haven't been convicted of anything yet. And that's just not right. This came in the mail today, a picture of a license plate on my car. Imagine that, government using surveillance cameras to catch me in a violation. And it cost, without a trial, I got to pay them $11.60. Now, how fair is that? Surveillance. You know, we got that pesky thing called the Supreme Court, and they said there's no privacy in public. Imagine that. Can you do something about that? Because I want privacy when I leave my house. I don't like it that cars now have cameras in them. You know, a Tesla has a 360-degree view, and they catch everything that's going on, and that can potentially be hacked in by who knows who they can get into there. These doorbell cameras, get rid of those things too, because I'm in public walking down the sidewalk. Yeah. I don't want you to catch people breaking into my house. That Ted Kaczynski, remember that guy? He might have been onto something. Surveillance, computers. Think about that for a minute. Boy, something just doesn't seem right. You know, people taking pictures of you when you go out, every which way, when you go to the supermarket, coming to City Hall. Think about that for a minute. How about my cell phone that tracks me? Even when I turn it off, it's telling them where I am. Can't take the battery out of it, but it still knows. And those things, Siri devices that people pay money to so it can say, hey Siri, what time is it? And ask it questions. Let's get rid of those things too, because that's surveillance. And who knows who's listening to that. So I thank you for your time and thank you for your service.
Thank you for your comment. Next we have Mr. David Donahue.
Good evening, Commissioners. My name is David Donahue. I'm a homeowner and business owner here in the wonderful city of Burbank. Big supporter of the flock cameras. I think that we all know that the chief has said it, to the dais many times, how many arrests have been made, how many criminals have been prosecuted because of the flock cameras. This is an indispensable tool, and to get rid of it is going to put more victims, people that have suffered from crimes, from assaults, from kidnappings, you just name it. Just pick something. They're going to do it. And Chair Hagobian, I'm going to ask a favor. If this crowd gets out of hand, I'm going to ask you to gavel them quiet and have the decorum in this chamber that any speaker here deserves. You have not been doing that. So if they're going to act up, I'm going to claim my time back, and then I'm going to have this place back to order. One of the things I think we need to keep mind of is that this is an indispensable tool at about $170,000 annually. To replicate the number of arrests and prosecutions, just imagine how many officers it would take. It would probably expand by a magnitude of 10. So the affordability is undeniable. The effectiveness is undeniable. And as Mr. Schlossman correctly said, there is no right to privacy when you are in public. Just watch Fridays with Frank. Fridays with Frank, it's like, you don't get it. I scanned your license plate. You're out on a warrant. You have not shown up to court. Guess what? I'm going to pull you over. And I would say thank you to that, because it takes somebody who needs to be accountable to court or to be arrested. We cannot do the work with just officers. We need to be able to embrace the technology. Los Angeles Police Department has not gotten rid of their flock system. They have suspended it. So let's bring that up and be clear about it. They're trying to renegotiate. And if there's something that the chief of police feels is important to renegotiate, let him do it. Not you, him. He's in charge. The buck stops with him. Give him the authority and the responsibility to do his job, not just a bunch of loud people. Because if we really wanted to, I could probably fill the chamber, because you've seen me do it before. So let's just kind of keep that in mind. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. And the next speaker we have is Jane Harrison.
Jane Harrison, and I've lived in Burbank since 1987. And I don't want any criminals in America, regardless of their religion, their nationality, the color of their skin, or who adults love. America's become very scary, and it's really reminded me a lot of Nazi Germany, what's going on here. For the citizens and even the illegals, I want all of us safe. I don't want any ICE in Burbank, and I don't want any Fox cameras watching us, and I don't want Fox cameras listening to us when I'm walking down the sidewalk. Thank you.
Thank you for your comment, and I believe that was the last in-person comment card. And next, we're going to go to any callers on the phone.
Yes, we have a total of 7 callers. The first caller wishes to remain anonymous.
Caller, go ahead.
There's been little to no transparency from Burbank PD, Police Commission, and many sitting City Council members. How many members of City Council, Burbank PD, and or Police Commission have traveled to Flock headquarters? Have all of City Council's Burbank PD and Commission outside business interests been disclosed? Are any Burbank officials paid consultants for Flock? It's odd that police body cams can be turned off, but Flock cameras cannot. There's at least one Flock Condor camera in Burbank on Chandler and Buena Vista. It records video, not just AOPR license plate information. It's on public property facing away from the train tracks towards the sidewalk and street traffic moving away from Chandler. This isn't for crash or public safety. This is for public surveillance. Just as the 5 Flock cameras on public property on Flower outside of the Home Depot are, just as Burbank PD's drones, test droids, and other unnecessary militarized equipment are. Our First and Fourth Amendment rights are endangered. There's no third-party data to back up Flock's claim of anti-crime efficiency, only statistics from Flock itself. These aren't public safety tools. They create a police state. We must ban all surveillance technology in Burbank now. Thank you, and land back.
Thank you, caller. Next caller, please.
Next caller is Nathan.
Caller, go ahead.
Hi, my name is Nathan, and I live in Burbank. I would love for Burbank to get Flock blocked. I want our city to cancel their contract. A big thing that is likely not in the contract is what happens with all of this data when Flock ceases to exist. We saw this when the 23andMe company decided to sell. It quickly became very obvious that the most valuable thing they had was all the data that they had been collecting on American citizens. On top of the data privacy issue, I have yet to see a study by the police department on what the use of this has actually been. How many times have we actually successfully used this data to close a case? And what is the cost per successful case closure? Is it actually more cost-effective to just hire another policeman? We've been using these for long enough. We should be able to provide that study. And if we're not, then I have to assume that it's just not useful. Thank you.
Thank you, caller. Next caller, please.
Next caller is Zara.
Go ahead, caller.
Hi, everybody. My concern is also the Flock surveillance system. It's a known collaborator with ICE and has been known to share data without informing police departments. Burbank police have said that they do not share data with federal agencies. However, up until recently, Burbank shared their Flock data with the Northern California Regional Intelligence Center, and that's a federal entity. Burbank shares with El Cajon, Riverside, San Bernardino, who we know share data with federal agencies as well. The Riverside County Sheriff's Office is the same agency whose ICE-related Flock searches prompted South Pasadena to terminate its Flock contract in March of this year. And LAPD is also not renewing their contract due to safety reasons, as we know. The surveillance tool has major safety concerns, as everybody has already mentioned, and also violates the Fourth Amendment. And I'm glad some cities are waking up. So my question is, when does Burbank stop collaborating with Flock? The community, the loud people do not want this. Please cancel the contract. This was never discussed or voted on. Thank you so much.
Thank you, caller. Next caller, please.
Next caller is Caitlin.
Go ahead, Caitlin.
Hi, my name is Caitlin, and I've been a Burbank resident for over 7 years now. And like many of my fellow community members, I'm deeply concerned about flock cameras in Burbank. Largely because of privacy violation issues, we know that these cameras have been used to target immigrant and undocumented community members, as well as those seeking reproductive care. They've also been used in cases of stalking, sometimes by law enforcement of ex-partners. And we also see that this is a massive IT security risk, as many people have rightfully pointed out. These cameras are often not secure. Some are even accessible online by anyone or easily hacked. And like many have mentioned, the LAPD even had data storage concerns, which is why they suspended their most recent contract to try to push for greater clarification from the company. My other concern is that there's potential in the future for an even bigger expansion of this technology. I believe the company Leonardo was proposing something called Signal Trace, which would help establish an electronic fingerprint that ties things like your devices, like your phones, your AirPods, your Apple Watch, to your vehicle license plate to create profiles on people. This is really, really concerning, and I urge you guys to please cancel your flock contract. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, caller. Next caller, please.
The next caller is Ben.
Hi there. I'm a resident of Burbank. I'm citing information that's been gathered from Public Records Southern California Substack. It's an article that I've made sure to send over to the commission. It's titled Burbank Built a Surveillance Network and Nobody's Watching. So Burbank flock cameras scan roughly 1.5 million plates every month. Even though almost every driver is suspected of nothing, at least 3 former employees were found to still have access after leaving the department. And the supposed monthly audits were created only after a public records request is filed. The data collected by Flock is shared with hundreds of agencies, while Flock's contract gives the company permanent rights to use Burbank data to train its technology. No thanks. Despite this enormous surveillance dragnet, the city has produced no independent analysis showing that it meaningfully reduces crime. This is not just a vendor problem. Burbank residents should not be subjected to constant suspicionless tracking. Please recommend ending the ALPR use entirely, not replacing Flock with another company, and canceling the Flock contract. I know the agenda item you have in front of you, item G2, includes the phrase possible recommendations on the use of technology, like that of Flock. Try not to get distracted by the clowns that are coming in here to these meetings, searching for attention, falling the victims as slippery slopes like doorbell cameras and cell phones being the same as Flock technology. I know you're mature enough to know that there's nuance here. I understand that there's not a whole bunch of power that you have, but please use the power that you have to recommend that Burbank cancels its Flock contract first and foremost and reevaluates its need for ALPR technology after that. The onus is on the police department to show its citizens that have their best interests at heart. And so based on what you've heard tonight and what you see our neighboring cities have done in canceling their contracts, I strongly encourage you to recommend to City Council and the police department, the police chief that has your ear, that we cease the use of Flock cameras immediately. I mean, just even recommend putting some garbage bags up with those bad boys if you can't take them down immediately. Thanks.
Thank you, caller. Next caller, please.
Next caller would like to remain anonymous.
Go ahead, caller.
Hi, yes, I'm one of the many people who are calling to denounce Flock. I've been a Burbank resident for 4 years now, and I've never felt less safe in Burbank than when I found out that we have a Flock contract. I would rather my tax dollars go to dissolving a contract, whatever fee we may have to pay, than to go to us paying for a lawsuit, the city paying for a lawsuit when something terrible happens and somebody gets pulled over for a suspectedly stolen car and there's a big old mishap, or when we allow the Flock company to release data to ICE in order to pick someone up and deport them. And anybody who is in support of a Flock camera, any Flock cameras, any mass surveillance being monitored by AI in this city, when things go wrong, when people are hurt, the blood is on your hands. Thank you.
Thank you for your comment. Next caller.
Next caller is Jonathan.
Go ahead, Jonathan.
Hi there, Commissioners. I'm also calling in to suggest that the Flock contract be dropped. I think that Flock has time and time again proven to be a very untrustworthy company. And even beyond the issues with Flock itself, I don't think that this sort of mass surveillance makes us safer. I think with any sort of concerns about public safety, we have to constantly weigh the pros and cons. What are we losing and what are we gaining? And I think that the sort of surveillance, we lose way, way more than we actually gain here. It puts people at risk. We've been seeing how Flock's been collaborating with ICE, and we've been seeing the abuses of just mass surveillance in general at the federal level. And it can happen at a more local level too. As other people have pointed out, we don't know who will be in charge of these Flock cameras in the future. And there's no reason why we should set ourselves up for potential civil liberties abuses. So please encourage the City Council to drop this contract.
Thank you, caller. Next caller, please. Oh, that was it? Okay, great. Well, thank you so much, everyone. We'll now close the public comment period. And now we're going to move on to item E, Commission response to public comments. Just a reminder that the Commission cannot act on items raised during public comment. Commissioners may provide only brief, non-substantive responses, request clarification, or refer items to staff. I'll now open up to the Commissioners for response, and we'll start with Paul.
First of all, thank you for so many people being here, especially the younger citizens of Burbank. We have been asking for months for community involvement. This is definitely something that we are concerned about, obviously referring to Flock, and we have also done some research. As of today, LAPD has shined a light on this, that it needs to be looked at a little deeper. As of today, LAPD is not saying they've canceled the contract, they're saying they're reworking its partnership. And I think this is a wonderful opportunity for Burbank to learn whatever we learn from LAPD's overview. The FYI, Flock is only one of the systems. LAPD also uses Axon and Motorola. So there are still surveillance systems out there. This is just one. Mr. Joel, I apologize, I don't say your last name correctly. I'll call you Joel. Mr. Donahue, thank you for your comments. I do think that whether we like it or not, surveillance is a part of our society. And just right on down to cell phone cameras, you can't do anything. Or the First Amendment auditors that are surround people at the post office. For the woman who came here asking about Sparks, I would suggest that you speak to the Transportation or Traffic Commission about speed humps on Sparks. I'm familiar with your street and familiar with your concerns. But other than that, I do think that there's a lot to be learned. But I will tell you from our experience in the past year with the leadership at Burbank PD, they are open to all suggestions, are open to learning. I do think that in the long run, we will work this out. But thank you for your input.
Thank you, Paul. Michael?
Well, first of all, thank you all for coming tonight. I will probably disagree with most of you, but I think we all can agree that it's good to have a good debate on this subject. It needs to be talked about. And we really can't come together as a community unless we hold that discussion. In my mind, it's an interesting, we're living in an interesting world right now. And when it comes to privacy, I feel like that boat has sailed a long time ago. It's interesting, I've been on this commission long enough, I can remember the discussion about if the Burbank police...
Mike, I just want to make sure that you're just keeping it brief.
Yeah. Okay. Gee, I only started. Anyways, I remember the discussion on body cams. The public wanted the police to have body cams, and not everybody on the department wanted them. And now we're discussing another form, and it's basically a different viewpoint. Let's have this discussion and let's see where it takes us. But thanks again.
Thank you, sir. And we're going to go with Narbe.
Yeah, just to echo the gratitude for everybody who showed up tonight and all the folks who called in. I'm looking forward to the discussion later. I think there's a lot of opportunity for better governance and oversight and transparency of Flock, but I also see the public safety value of it. So I'm just excited to get into the discussion. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Chapman?
Wow. Just fantastic, the response that we got on this information and the views that were expressed tonight. I want to thank everybody for coming this evening. It's not going to be settled tonight. There is a lot of discussion that's going to continue, I'm sure, and there may be some changes in the direction of the policies in our department. I don't know, but we look forward to seeing what happens in the future here.
Thank you, sir. James?
I also am grateful that everyone's here and I'm really impressed with the turnout. Back in October 2021, we had an agenda item to discuss and brainstorm strategies to stimulate community engagement. It took us 5 years, but we might have figured that out, so we really appreciate you all being here. I also want to lift up that I think the audience tonight is going to find that what we're going to discuss tonight is probably not satisfactory, but I do hope that that folks are open to listening and might find it helpful as we continue to find our collective compass on this. I heard a lot of talk this evening about values and ethics related to this issue, and that's what I'm hoping we get into. As far as some of the requests around data, one of the values, I was able to go back and find that in October 2021 we had talked about trying to bring more people here because our agendas are online, the minutes are online, and also there's video of the meetings. And I want to point everybody to a presentation by Burbank PD that I believe was in April of this year, which provided some of the data that some of you were asking for. So these are reports that are coming from the department. It's available online. You can check that out. I do want to lift up, one of the comments was about an email that was sent to all of the commissioners, and I actually didn't get that, so I just wanted to lift that up as a note. Maybe we can look into that later on. So I appreciate you bringing that to our attention, Mr. Sutherland. Again, the case closure information and some of the data is available from April, so I just really appreciate you all being here.
Thank you, sir. And I want to echo everyone on this dais. I want to thank you so much, everyone, for coming out and speaking out tonight. Anytime you're civically engaged and involved, you're part of the conversation. So we really thank you for that. And James is right. It took a little while for us to get here, but we did. And so what we're going to do now is I'm going to save my comments because we have an agenda item coming up to address those concerns. So what we're going to do is we're going to move on to the approval of the minutes from the June 17, 2026 meeting.
I'll go ahead and motion to approve.
Oh,
I'll second.
wonderful. James motions, Paul seconds, and we'll go for a roll call.
Commissioner Coombs?
Yes.
Commissioner Chapman?
Yes.
Commissioner Hakobian?
Yes.
Commissioner
I'm
Ellman?
sorry, I abstain. I was not here.
Commissioner Ellman?
Yes.
Commissioner McKenna?
Yes.
Commissioner Hartunian?
Yes.
Thank you, everyone. So now we're going to move on to item G, items of business. First, we're going to have a presentation, discussion, and recommendation on the department's pursuit policy to include risk rewards, safety considerations, and public education opportunities.
Mr. Chair, in light of the public engagement tonight, you do have the option of switching the order of the items if you want to discuss item 2 instead of item 1 first.
Is that something I can take a vote on with my fellow commissioners?
You don't have to take a
I don't
vote.
have
You
to
can
take a vote
just
on?
decide. You can run your meeting.
Okay,
and
perfect.
switch
Then,
the order.
then we can go ahead and move it up, since it's an important conversation. So what we'll do is we're going to move that down, and we're going to move up the discussion of possible recommendations on the use of public safety surveillance technology, data storage, and technology procurement, to include ALPR, public safety cameras, marketplace data tracking, unmanned aircraft systems, real-time information systems, and any biometric recognition technologies used by the department. And before we begin, I want to acknowledge that the department has presented some of these technologies to the commission over the years. Most recently, most thoroughly on the ALPR in April, as Jane mentioned. Tonight is not a request for the department to repeat those presentations. Additionally, while we have received prior presentations, we may not have had information presented that will address every issue that may be raised tonight. The purpose of tonight's discussion is to identify the specific concerns and questions regarding public safety, surveillance technology, data storage, and technology procurement. As such, I want to establish one ground rule. This is a commission discussion, not a department report. The chief is here, and some basic factual questions may be answered tonight, but we should not expect the department to provide a full response without notice or preparation. Any formal recommendations should come after we receive an updated information, place the matter on a future agenda, and build the conclusions based on the consensus rather than reaching them in advance. And with that, I'm going to go and turn to James, and this is your agenda item.
Thank you. I appreciate that, and I appreciate you reading the agenda item as well, because I'm going to really stick to the topics that are in there. Going into this, the material that I'm going to prepare, I didn't put together a fancy PowerPoint or anything like that. These are just my notes based on some of the research that I've gone through, that's available publicly to the public, either through the department or publicly available. And I want to go through and I want to address each item. Romik, I don't know if you want us to pause in between each item for any discussion or comment, or would it be better if I just went through the whole thing and then we opened it for everybody?
I would say we can do per item, makes it easier.
Per item?
Than
Okay.
jumping back and forth.
Okay. So the first item I'm focusing on with the agenda item is just general public safety surveillance technology. I want to acknowledge that the technology, and we've talked about it this evening, the technology is constantly evolving. There is both municipal and private entity purchases and registration of this technology. So it's not just technology that's owned by Burbank Police Department. It's not technology that's owned by the city. There's also private ownership of some of this as well, and we'll get into that in a little bit. There are public-private partners, both corporate and individuals, as we've talked about here. The technology greatly assists in investigation, investigation affecting case resolution. And we heard a lot of information about that in April. And at the same time, as we've heard this evening, there are significant legal and ethical risks that I want to make sure that we explore this evening. I do trust and know that the City Attorney's Office is lead responsibility for liability issues and anything that puts us at legal liability with the city. And I trust the City Attorney's Office to take care of that. So I just, other than just acknowledging that there may in fact be liabilities, I trust that the City Attorney's Office is going to take care of that for us.
Okay.
These are just opening comments as I dive in. Should I keep going from there?
Yeah, is that the only comments you have on that item?
On just the piece of public safety surveillance technology. The next piece I have is around policy review.
Okay, so let's just go and stop there, and then now we can move on to the commissioner comments to see, anyone have any discussion around that? Paul?
Okay.
Before you dive in any further, I would make one recommendation that in your discussion, if you are citing to facts, if you could cite your source, that would be helpful.
Sure.
So that as we vet the issue either tonight or in the future, we have that information. And that goes for everybody as you do your discussion.
Sure. Now, I will acknowledge that there are moments where my citation might be the internet, which I know is a problem. So we'll deal with that when we get there. Okay. No, it's not definitely not TikTok. All right. So the second section is around a policy review. There we go. Second section is around a policy review. I got a chance to review all of the department's policies that have anything to do with surveillance or data collection. And I want to just kind of go through those numbers real quick, name them briefly, and if there's others that folks are aware of, I'd love to hear what they are. So policy number 221, which focuses on surveillance camera systems specifically at the station for the purpose of both security of the station and for visitors. So there is video that's recorded at the station for the purposes of maintaining security there. Policy 314 focuses on watch commander responsibilities, and this goes into, actually, I saw a note in the vehicle pursuit policy when we get into that. This is involving vehicle pursuits, and it's also, the watch commander also has access to video data to address issues related to bias-based policing. So this is something that they can access. Policy number 415 focuses on body-worn and in-person cameras, and I do appreciate this was addressed by the commission in 2020 before I joined and before a number of us joined. So I really thank Mike Ellman and Mike Chapman for being involved in that conversation. Policy number 440 is around contacts and temporary detentions, and this involves the collection of audio and video recordings and pictures, and we'll get into the why the collection of that is important later. Policy 475 focuses on photographs and video recording. Policy 616 focuses on evidentiary digital imagery and imaging and video. And Policy 619 focuses on surveillance and undercover equipment. All is used by the department and all policies which are readily available to the public through the website. Are there any other departmental policies that we want to make sure that we include in as we cover this?
Commissioners?
The policies are all on the internet.
They're all available on the internet.
At the city, and they are searchable, I believe, now.
That's a good question. I appreciate, back when we were preparing to go to the NACOL conference last fall, Narbe actually did a great job. I don't know how he did it, but he pulled all the policies together, which made them searchable, but I have not found that available online the way it's currently set up. We have to go through policy by policy in order to search.
Yeah, in fact, I'm going to speak with Lieutenant Efekity. He's following with Power DMS, the vendor, and they're looking into a solution for that.
Cool.
You can search each individual policy, but you can't do a
Right.
keyword search, and you can't, I think there's 207 policies on there. You can't search like the title. You can only search what's visible on the screen at any
Right.
given time.
Right.
So it becomes a kind of a cumbersome process, and you're never sure what you miss. And I will add, like in terms of policy specific to Flock itself, I think one of the best things the department has done, if you go to the transparency portal on the Burbank PD website, it'll actually link to the Flock systems transparency, which I think lists, breaks down our contractual limits on the type of data that we use and type of data that we share. It's a great resource. I encourage anyone who hasn't been there to go use it. I just did some querying online, and of the hundreds of departments out there that are customers of Flock, less than a quarter actually have a transparency portal. And of those, I think it's something like 5% that have a feature that ours has, which any member of the public can query the last 30 days log of department use of Flock. So you can go in there, pull a big log, you can see each individual, obviously it's anonymized, you can't see the officer's name, but you can see a unique identifier for whoever queried the log. You can see the crime that they were investigating, the date, time. It's a really neat feature, and I think it speaks to kind of again, without getting into, I'm sure we'll talk more about the problems with the company itself, but the department's transparency on this issue, I think it's a very unique feature that a lot of cities don't have the benefit of.
Thank you. Thank you. All right. Go ahead and move on.
Yes, I want to see if anybody else has any comments.
I think one of the things that we do right is first off, we have a lot of leadership that came from other departments. So we have that institutional knowledge that was brought over. Second, like even on this right now, I think we are in a wait and see pattern with LAPD. We have somebody of a much larger organization, much larger problems, that's going to invest their time and their effort into investigating this, and we'll get the benefit from it. We'll learn from it. So I agree 100%. I was really glad to hear about that transparency. I didn't realize you could look up how many times it actually has been resourced. But I think that is something that if the community looks at it, they might realize this isn't the mass surveillance that they're concerned about. It is actually tracking legitimate concerns. I mean, this weekend we had a youth that went missing, and I'm sure that this is something the family was comfortable or was glad we had in place when we were trying to help with that. So there's pros and there's cons, there's lessons to be learned, and all of this documentation, all of these checks and balances are essential. But I'm glad that we are open enough to learn from the other experiences.
Thank you, Paul.
I appreciate that. I wanted to emphasize that the information I'm sharing is not specific to Flock, just so folks are aware. But we are going to come back to the transparency page.
It was specific to our city.
I'm talking about policies, procedures specific to our city around collection of data.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah, just to clarify, the only reason about the transparency portal is because I think our ALPR policy, obviously doesn't mention specifically, but unique to that contract. I think it's like an internal policy in and of itself.
Yeah. Okay. Moving on. All right. The third area is around data storage, and I want to lift up challenges and for us to consider local storage versus cloud-based storage. So one of the things that's happened is that I know some of our commissioners have got increased awareness of federal law, and we're talking about access to private company data. We're talking about no notification to local entities when some of that data is being accessed. We got into the weeds a little bit. We were talking at one point, and I learned from one of my commissioners about the Stored Communications Act, which is Title II of the Electronic Communications Privacy Act of 1986, which allows, and then the second piece is the Patriot Act of 2001, which further complicates things, because what these allow the federal government to do is to subpoena information without disclosure. So that's that. This is not completely in my wheelhouse, but the concern is that the federal government can subpoena data from private companies that are holding on to that data without disclosing to local entities that they're disclosing that information, or that they're sharing that information. I want to lift up also around data storage, something that we use locally, and during the Axon body camera, and I've got another note of it later on, and this was a police commission presentation again in 2020. It's available online, and we've heard about it since in different places, is the Burbank Police Department uses something called evidence.com. This is a system that is owned by Axon, and we've been working with Axon for a while. From Axon's own webpage, they indicate that evidence.com allows for unlimited cloud-based storage. It also meets legal compliance regulations. So it's meeting the regulations that are state and federally approved and put out there. But the problem is, as I'd already mentioned with the two pieces of legislation that I shared, is that there are circumstances where the federal government can access data without notifying local entities. So that's the concerns I have about the data storage piece.
Anybody else want to comment on data storage?
Just to comment specifically on SCA. So the way that works, just because I have some working knowledge of this, it's not that the federal government can access. If the federal government gets a judicial warrant,
right,
which means they've demonstrated probable cause to a magistrate, then they can submit a search warrant to FLOC and they can get that data. Presumably, if they're trying to get that data, I would think that what the federal government would first try to do is if they think they're entitled to it and there's a case, let's say they're investigating some sort of a human trafficking ring. And my first thought would be is they would coordinate with the department to see if they could get them on board with the investigation. Right. If they're trying to get that data, either it's so sensitive or, like you mentioned, the Patriot Act, maybe there's some sort of terrorism component to it, or because the department itself is under investigation, or because it's a prohibited area that the department can't investigate, then they would still have to demonstrate probable cause in order to get that data. Subpoenas are a little bit different. Like, they can't necessarily get content, they get some of that data. Mm-hmm. The sealing order that comes with that, it's not that the federal government has access to it and we don't know. They have a demonstrated either reasonable suspicion for subpoena or probable cause, and they can issue that subpoena to get that data from FLOC. I would think in those scenarios, even though it is without the city's knowledge, there is that independent element of the judiciary. It's been reviewed by, let's say the biggest concern I think a lot of folks have is like ICE. This isn't coming from an administrative judge. It's coming from an actual magistrate in the district court that is reviewing these and either granting these non-disclosure orders. And typically a non-disclosure order, if you go to Title 18 of the United States Code 2705, you can see the specific criteria that it has to meet. Like, for example, they're sealing it because they think the disclosure of this is going to compromise, somebody's going to flee the country, or they're going to destroy evidence. There's specific criteria that has to be met. So I agree, like there's definitely avenues for this. And I think the way we kind of address those locally is by ensuring that we have control of our data, and I'm sure we can talk more about this.
Yeah.
But just a little bit of an insight into the SCA specifically.
Thank you for that.
Commissioner Hartunian, for our audience and for posterity, can you just briefly tell us your professional background or why you would have this knowledge?
I am a federal law enforcement officer, so I'm not an immigration officer, so I can't necessarily speak to those types of investigations. But having used a lot of these tools in the course of my investigations, I generally understand how they function and like what the mechanisms are to get there. So it's not as simple as like an agency deciding they want access to this data. You have to first bring the Department of Justice on board. You have to get an attorney with the United States government, assistant United States attorney, to kind of support that investigation, take it to a magistrate, and convince that magistrate. And magistrates aren't there because they're they were awarded these positions most of the time. They're going to have detailed questions. So it's a process. And although again, like in every process, there's room to manipulate and exploit. But the reality here is, at least you have that external layer of security. And if you get that unique set of circumstances, there's been some checks and balances.
I appreciate that. So just to summarize, it seems like there's a process to attain this data, and the process needs to be followed in order for them to attain it. Is that correct?
Yeah, specific to the SCA, and
Okay.
since we're like bibliography here, 18 USC 2703D, which is a subpoena, and 2705, I think, which is the non-disclosure order. People can look that up. It's the United States Code, so you can see exactly what the language there is.
Thank you so much.
Good. Okay. Moving on. The fourth item is around technology procurement, and this is actually coming from, I work in the public sector. I interact with a couple of different municipalities. One of the things that we're charged to do in the charter for the police commission is to make sure that we do our own independent research and work on this. And so I've gotten the opportunity to not only communicate with the Burbank Police Department, but I get the opportunity to work with at least 2 other law enforcement entities as well. So I get to bounce things off of them in the course of my day-to-day work, and this just happens to be a nexus. So this is where this next piece of information comes from. One of the things, there's a pattern that's happening right now in a couple of other municipalities, and I don't know whether that's happening here in Burbank, but I want to lift it up as a concern, is that there is often, for the procurement of equipment in other municipalities, there's often a sales force that will approach whoever the municipality is, and that sales force is aware company ABC will have lobbyists, and these lobbyists will then advocate for certain federal funding to become available. The federal funding that becomes available could be in the form of grants or other forms of funding, and sometimes they're not necessarily advocating for a specific company, but they're able to advocate for specific technologies. And then once those specific technologies are identified, information, there's usually only a small set of vendors that can meet those technology requirements. So there is a pattern there. And one of my colleagues that I'm working with on a regular basis is initially, it's a small department that was just starting up. They were taking every grant opportunity that they could. When they started to realize that there was this Salesforce component, they became a little bit more critical of what the information that was coming their way. So I just really appreciated hearing about the pattern about how sometimes technology makes its way into municipalities and how some organizations are taking steps to really vet whether it's an appropriate technology or not to bring in. It's cool tech. It's interesting tech. It's demonstrated as useful, and ultimately when it starts to work its way into place, it can be sometimes demonstrated as invaluable. And we see that in Burbank. We see that in other locations as well. So that's the piece about technology procurement that I wanted to make sure we explored.
Thank you, James. Any comments on that? No? Okay.
I feel like it's a conversation with me and James, so
it seems like it. But I do also want to remind everyone that we do have, 35 minutes left in this meeting, so, and we do have another agenda item as well.
Yep.
So I just want to...
I'll get through it as quick as I can.
Mr. Chairman, I was going to, with that in mind, do we want to postpone the other agenda item until next month, allow the sergeant to leave?
You definitely can, yeah, Chief. Okay, yeah.
I wish we had thought of that 10 minutes ago, but
Yeah.
thank you.
That's okay.
I don't think
You
so.
got it. Thank you, sir.
Okay, thank you.
Do we need a vote on that?
Do we need a vote
I
on
don't
that?
think so.
No. Gina says no? That's a no.
I just think it's a valuable presentation. I don't want to rush it.
Yeah.
Is there anybody who has an objection so that we should vote on it? We're all good, right?
We're good.
Let's move on.
Great.
Thank you, Gina. Okay.
So any responses to the technology procurement or comments on that? Yeah.
To me, like in terms of governance and transparency, I think that's the most important area, because I think the situation we're in now, talking about Flock, years after it's been implemented and identifying all these issues with it, I think what we could do is a better, and procurement is one issue, because the department, they're the subject matter experts. They know what they're buying. They know the reason they're buying it. I think the problem becomes is to what level does the public get visibility on that purchase? A really good example is the Fusus software that we have as part of Axon, the real-time, intelligence component of the Axon system. That's in the contract, but unless you know to go to look for it,
Right.
It wasn't summarized in the city attorney's letter to the council when they voted to pass the funding for it. I think there's a lot of room, especially for this commission, to kind of collate that information and work with the department to identify what's important, so we can communicate that up to the council and also, inform the public. Right. So we have visibility on these issues in advance, so that if the public does have a concern, we can voice it in a timely manner before the procurement opportunity is made. I think that's where we have maybe the most room to kind of impact this process. And I think Flock's a great example of that, because here we are, we had our meeting in April, but realistically, how much time did that give the public for feedback? And by the time the vote came, it was already lined out in the budget. I think we could have increased a lot of visibility on that just by talking about it more on the front end.
I agree.
Yeah.
Michael?
A question, contracts to private companies, is that through the city attorney's office or through the police department?
The departments have the contracts. Those contracts get approved, get reviewed and approved for legal form through our office, but the agreement is not with the city attorney's office. It is with the department or the city, depending on whatever the contract is and the subject of the contract.
Thank you.
Quick comment on that. The LAPD OIG report that everyone's been talking about related to the flock systems, the most glaring component of that are the repeated references to audits from 2018, 2019, where different elements within the city and state government have called out issues with the arrangement they had with their various ALPR vendors. And, there was no action taken.
Right.
One, if you compare the structure of that LAPD contract to Burbank's, we're decades ahead of what LAPD was operating. The situation they're in now is because of the sloppy language in that contract. Not to say that our services agreement doesn't have a lot of room for improvement, because again, the data issues that we're all concerned about, I think they're very complicated, and you can't minimize them into one or two paragraphs. But we're light years ahead of where LAPD was in terms of that contract they're renegotiating now. And also one other comment specific to this, on the last topic that a couple people mentioned that there is no recourse for citizens, and which is why we need to just get rid of the system. To me, my concern creeps in. Axon is a great example. I'm not certain, and I'm not sure the department is going to know when Axon starts fielding their biometric surveillance capabilities in their body-worn cameras. I feel like we're all going to be playing catch-up to that as the technology improves. And so, to me, it's great to have some sort of legal recourse. When it comes to ALPRs, specifically, SB 34, if our data is breached, and obviously the city's entered into this contract, if your data is breached, you have a cause of action. There's a minimum $2,500 fine that you can get. Obviously, the city's going to be liable because we've entered into this, but our lawmakers saw fit to incorporate this into statute, over a decade ago. And so you don't get there by kind of avoiding talking about these things, which is why it's important that we're having this discussion tonight.
Appreciate that. Any other comments on technology procurement?
No.
Okay. So the fifth item on the list is ALPRs, automated license plate readers specifically. And as has been raised up in this room this evening, Flock is not the only vendor. When we focus on Flock, I think we're doing ourselves a disservice. ALPRs have actually been in patrol vehicles for some time, and we've gotten presentations on this in the past. And my understanding is that there's technology other than Flock that operates ALPRs within the city of Burbank. Here's the part that's got me concerned. There is, I've got personal experience of observing private ALPR use, and I'm going to point to a specific experience that Narbe and I had. We were preparing to go to the NACOL conference last September, October, and we're sitting in a coffee shop on Magnolia, and a little red Honda Civic drives by, and it has some funky cameras on it. We don't know what it is. It cruises by really slow. And then he notices it first because he's seeing it come up the street. Then I notice it going away. It goes down about a half a block. It flips a U-turn. It comes back again a little bit quicker this time. And then it zooms out. And within seconds, a private tow truck pulls in, pulls the vehicle out, kind of gets it out of its parking spot and everything, and takes off with it. And both of us were pretty shocked that was happening. That was the first real reminder to me that this technology, we're not just talking about public entities using this technology. And I'm going to come back to a toothpaste analogy, but the toothpaste is out of the tube because there are private entities everywhere that are using this technology, and we don't know what the regulation is on it, but we know it's being used. So that was about ALPRs. Is there anything anybody else wants to go into about ALPRs specifically?
I just want to echo what Narbe said earlier in regards to the ALPR review by the LAOIG. It's not about canceling the contract. LA is not canceling, they're reforming the contract. They're trying to catch up to where Burbank is because Burbank took the proactive approach to develop a contract that works really well. And you guys are more than welcome to read it. It's online. And that's all I'll say about that. But, yeah, go on.
Anything else related to ALPRs specifically?
I think it was a red Corolla.
Was it a red Corolla? Okay. I'm partial to Hondas, so that's probably why I thought that. Okay, so the sixth item I have is around public safety cameras in general, and so I got a chance to go online with the city of Burbank, and there are a lot of cameras in Burbank. They're everywhere. And so I got curious, and I know they're not all flock cameras, so I was curious as to where they were. So I went and looked at the Public Works website. There was actually a comment that was made this evening during public comment that this may be the system that was used. There's a traffic camera system that's operated by Public Works within the city of Burbank. Recordings are available to the public. There's a fee for it, and then you can request what type of format you want it on. You can get it as a flash drive or as a CD, and there's fees associated with that. But the important piece is these cameras are everywhere, and that data is also being it's sent over to BPD that can monitor it in real time. I'd mentioned one of the policies earlier about how the watch commander can access data and can access camera feeds in the event of a pursuit or any other incident that's happening. Burbank Police Department has access to those camera feeds. Because, and this is an assumption on my part, but because people can request that data in the event if there's an accident or something like that, my assumption is that it's stored somewhere. And I'm hoping that it's stored locally, so that way it's not going outside of the city of Burbank, and it's something that we can control internally. The second item around cameras is that there's the private purchase of cameras that can be linked to cloud-based systems, and we're going to, you made reference to the name of the system in a moment. I keep on, I've got it written down, but I don't want to look at what my notes are. It's Fusus, and we're going to be coming back to Fusus as well. So we know that there are private citizens. So we have a lot of the public that's coming out to talk about their concern about flock and their concern about these cameras. But what we also know is that we know that there are people that are actually they're not showing up in these meetings, but they're purchasing the equipment and they have the ability to connect it to systems that Burbank and other municipalities have access to. We talked in January, or I'm sorry, the commission, but two of our commissioners in January of 2020 had the presentation from Burbank Police Department about body cameras, and I got a chance to watch that video and how storage works and how the information is stored in the axonevidence.com system. And there was also at the time, there was discussion and there was debate about, when some of you may remember this, there was debate about whether officers should be allowed to look at the body camera footage before they filed their reports. So as Narbe mentioned, things are moving forward at light speed. That is a non-issue anymore, but that data is being collected. That data is being stored and put into evidence.com. And Axon reports that evidence.com has unlimited data storage because they keep it in the cloud. The last one I've got is we've already made reference to this. It's the recent presentation from Burbank Police Department on their flock technologies. So those are the issues that I've identified in looking at public records and at looking at policies and at looking at publicly made available information about public safety cameras. Did anybody have any additional information specifically on the presence of public cameras? Or public safety cameras? Paul?
I would just to say that I hope especially the members of the public that are still here, that they felt hurt. And the fact that we had this on the agenda prior to the LAPD situation this week, which brought a lot of people out, shows that it was a concern of ours as well. I think the concern is we have to make the public comfortable with the fact that this data is not being violated. This data is not being misused. The value of this data, which is when I found out that LAPD was going to temporarily stop using it, is the network. Someone leaving Burbank, if they go out of the network, we lose the value of the information. But above all, I think you've heard a lot of facts here today, and what has demonstrated a lot of research. And above all, I hope that people feel like they've been heard. I don't think surveillance is going to go away. It's just question is going to be who's doing the surveillance, whether it's going to be private entities, whether it's going to be traffic, whether it's going to be police. So what we need to do is we need to find a way to make the public comfortable with the surveillance that's in place. Thank you.
And I just want to remind everyone, this is a discussion amongst commissioners, so this doesn't reflect in any way on the Burbank Police Department.
Right.
And I want everyone to know that. And, this is just independent research that we have done ourselves.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Correct. So the seventh item is around marketplace data tracking, and I'm going to be honest with you, other than cellular devices, I have no idea how that made it into the agenda item. So I don't know if anybody else had a thought on that about marketplace data tracking.
Anyone?
Well, Yeah, I think one of
Gina?
our, oh, sorry, am I?
No.
One of the speakers tonight mentioned, some other technologies that are out there, like the Flock Nova system, which we don't use, we're not subscribing to, but it does track people, and it does use marketplace data, and it does commingle that with other data sets. And like things like that, again, like they're developing so fast, the public may not even have, broad awareness of it. But the amount of data that's out there, the universe of data that companies can access in order to track our movements, I think the way we get ahead of that as a city is, again, through good governance. I think our department is subject matter experts. They're obviously willing to engage, and I think it's a matter of having understanding how our data is being used, and so that it's not being commingled into these other data sets to the extent that we can control it. LAPD did not have that mechanism of control, as that OIG report showed. Their data could be used for any purpose. To the extent that ours can, I think that still warrants a lot of discussion, which I'm sure we'll have over the next few months. But it's very different from the LAPD contract, where the data was just potentially being resold. And Flock data outside of California is being resold. If you go to our transparency site, at least we know that's not the case with Burbank data.
And we're going to come back to that.
Anybody else? Gina?
I wish I had caught you before you went to marketplace data. I was just going to let you know, as you continue to discuss and consider this issue, one of the things that you should look into is on local data storage. We had for a long time for some of our systems. It is incredibly expensive, which is why in order to meet the legal requirements for like length of storage, how long you have to keep information, the city in large part has gone to a cloud-based storage system because it gives us the opportunity for to store more information for the requisite legal period of time without incurring literally millions of dollars for local storage. And so that's something that you should continue to think about as you look at this issue in its totality.
I appreciate that, because that is part of the discussion that doesn't necessarily get talked about. Full disclosure, I do have I'm not just identifying problems, I do have some recommendations at the end, but how to pay for it, no idea. But local data storage is part of, I think, the solution that ethically we could be more comfortable with, but there is a cost associated with it, and I want to acknowledge that.
The Assistant IT Director is also present tonight to
cool.
briefly address your question on local data storage.
Okay. Can we do that at the very end when we get into, when we're making recommendations? Would that be okay? Okay.
I was just going to say I would like to discuss local data storage also.
Excellent. That was under item number 3 of that, so we'll have to come back to it at the end.
So next is
unmanned aircraft systems. We're getting into some of the exciting stuff. So this is, and I've expanded this to all drone systems. So we get a chance to review every January before it goes to City Council. We get a chance to review the military equipment report. And so if folks are interested in the why of the military equipment report, really recommend go check out the videos on that. There's information that's posted on that. But what I do want to lift up is that there are 4 different technologies. I lumped one of them together. There's something called the Robotex Avatar tactical robot, which records audio, video, and you can download it via USB. There's also the Sky Hero SIGIN Mark I. There's also 4 different DJI drones, which I think folks are often familiar with and see around. And then the last one is something called the Sky Hero Loki Mark II. The Sky Hero SIGIN, I'm not even pronouncing that right, but that's what's written in there, SIGN Mark I. This is a ground-based robot that's sent in for tactical purposes. And then the Sky Hero Loki is a flying one as well. Both of those are purchased through Axon. And Axon is, I want to make sure that we connect the dots. Axon uses evidence.com to load all their stuff into one location. So as we've talked about where this data is stored, it's all being stored in the cloud, but it is saved there. In the military equipment report in 2025, there were 47 aerial deployments, and they were for tactical interventions, collision scene documentation, and also for aerial mapping. And something I want to note is in the report every year, and we've gotten a chance to review this report since inception, this is really important for the public to know. in the report, it identifies ways to file both online and telephonic complaints. In the full time that the report has been issued by the city of Burbank, there hasn't been a single complaint filed about any of this technology. So I want to lift that up. Again, we've got the opportunity here to talk about it. We've got the public that can speak during public comment. There are other ways in order for concerns to be raised, and I just want to lift up that there's nothing that's been identified there. I do want to lift up something that's kind of cool, and I came across something. The city of Grand Rapids, Michigan, puts together a surveillance report. It is similar to, but not the same as, our military equipment report. Just the same way California statute requires that we put together the annual military equipment report, the state of Michigan requires that they put together a surveillance report. There may be a possibility of including some of the information that they provide in the surveillance report either in our military equipment report or possibly do it separately. So, for example, in the military equipment report, which talks about the deployments, what was recorded, how often it was recorded, including if there were any complaints filed, that's all information that's in their surveillance report, and that might be something that we might want to consider recommending. So that's what I've got on unmanned aircraft systems.
Anyone got comments on that?
I just want to make a brief comment. I just want the people in attendance to know that military equipment is a state term. It's actually not a local term. None of the equipment that Burbank uses, including the Bearcat, is actual military equipment. It's all police equipment, and it's all used for defense and our apprehension of safely apprehending. There is absolutely no military equipment that is used by the Burbank Police Department. That's just, we are forced to use that term by the state.
Thank you, Paul. Any other comments?
I appreciate you bringing up the surveillance report. I think like LAPD and that OIG report they mentioned, their annual, it's like the technology report that they get briefed on. I think those types of things are really useful because you mentioned like the Axon UAS platforms. Flock Systems has a UAS platform that can, read your license plate from a mile away in the air. And so it's important, and I can imagine the technology on both is the same. It's basically just a software difference.
Right.
So it'd be nice to know when Axon's switching that on, and I'm sure it'd be nice to get ahead of that as a commission to kind of talk these issues through so we can better advise the council on them before we get into a situation. I really like the idea of that sort of a report. I believe we can talk about that some more.
Thank you, Narbe.
All right. Two more sections and then a recommendation. So we're in the home stretch. So the ninth part is real-time information systems. As Narbe had mentioned in the OI and also in the OIR report from 2025, they talked about FUSIS integration with Burbank Police Department. It was just a blurb in there, and I actually didn't understand what that was at the time of the report, but now I understand a lot more about it. So I've gotten a chance to talk with some folks. I don't know how fully integrated FUSIS is yet, but what I did do was I did some research about how FUSIS is being used in other jurisdictions in other parts of the country. FUSIS camera, FUSIS, there's something called the FUSIS camera registry system. This is a network of cameras that are privately owned. And then there's a registry system for it, and then that data can be shared with local law enforcement. So this, by the way, as we mentioned, is a part of Axon. This includes private homeowners and private camera owners being able to connect their Ring, their Nest, and closed-circuit television systems to this network. If you go to connectlosangelescounty.org, LASD is currently using the FUSIS system, and that is actually their registration portal. So it's active in other areas in the LA basin, and I don't know, and we don't know if and how that's going to be expanded within Burbank. So again, the advantage is it's real-time information systems. We're not talking about vehicle pursuit policy, but the watch commander can access real-time information systems right now. And we are real-time data systems, camera systems, and this is one of the mechanisms of how to do that in the future, if not it already happening right now. I don't know if you talked about FUSIS earlier. I don't know if you have anything else on FUSIS that you wanted to share.
No, but I agree. I think I'd love to get more information on it because again, like aside from like what the contract states,
right,
and what we can get from public information, I think the public would always benefits from having more information on those systems.
I agree.
Thank you, Narbe. Anybody else comment on that item?
All right, we're in the home stretch.
Go for it.
All right. So the last item that's in the agenda item before we get into proposals or recommendations, it's around biometric recognition, and these would be technologies that are used by the department. I could not find anything that is specific to Burbank Police Department. However, there's a system called the LACRIS. This is the Los Angeles County Regional Identification System, and this is for facial recognition. The LA County Sheriff's Department uses this technology, and there are agreements that it gets shared with other municipalities. So Burbank itself is not necessarily purchasing or engaging in the use of facial recognition, but through mutual aid, they have the ability to access this from other jurisdictions. I don't know if there's any plans for Burbank to use that right now, but this, again, if we're talking about transparency and technology, might be something that we want to explore down the road. Anybody else have anything on biometric recognition?
Just to note, LACRIS and the number of systems that are out there that I think are the most effective are typically investigative tools, and they're not necessarily surveillance tools. I think the problem becomes when systems like ALPR, type of systems like Flock or like Axon, when they start incorporating some of those technologies into their platforms, I think when that switch happens, it's important for obviously the public to be aware, but also us as a commission to kind of get ahead of it and discuss and get good data so we can provide recommendations to the city council on how to kind of wrangle those so we're not kind of encroaching on the type of violations that we've been discussing tonight.
Yeah.
Thank you, guys. And I remember in the last police commission meeting, I wasn't here, I was watching it from far away. I believe the chief stated that we don't have any biometric systems. Is that correct, Chief?
Correct. We have access to the LACRIS.
Yeah. Thank you, sir. Okay, so moving on.
So with that, the last piece is around proposals, and this is where we want to open it up for, Mike, go ahead.
I just wanted to check, in the different systems that you're listing there, I didn't see anything for auditing or oversight, such as our OIR does. Are there any systems, are you aware of any systems currently in our department that is overseeing the data traffic?
Mike, that's a really good point, and I didn't even go there because we didn't agendize to talk about oversight and auditing. So that's something that I would love to see us explore in the future. Okay?
Good.
Okay. Gina, I paid attention to the agenda item. Thank you. All right, so I'm going to throw it out there, and I'd love to open it up to get everybody's feedback as well. So I've got 4 recommendations. These are not necessarily realistic, but they're ethically viable. The first is as we were already talking about a little bit, is local data management. If we can get the data out of the cloud and manage it locally, and I'm going to give a quick analogy, which is going to sound kind of silly. Football games, college football teams, they have video crews, and they record the game UCLA versus USC. Then let's say Stanford's playing USC next week. UCLA can actually digitally provide the data to Stanford in preparation for the Stanford-USC game. There are systems already in place that do that. Imagine what it would look like if we held our own local data and then we were able to decide who we share that data with. So we can't do that if the data is in the cloud and somebody else is holding on to it. And as we talked about already, there are some circumstances where we may not even know where that data goes. The second recommendation is around...
Do we want to do one recommendation at a time?
We could.
I mean, that way we can see if everyone wants to.
Yeah, or if I get through this, I stop talking and you guys don't have to listen to me anymore.
Because it's going to make it easier, because if people might forget what that recommendation is. Yeah.
So local data management.
Did you?
That I'll disagree with, because what they found out, especially in the south, what they have hurricanes, with all your data is kept in one geography, it's very easy to lose all of it. So that's why it's distributed onto the cloud in different geographic locations, so it survives.
I actually have a response to that. In the work that I do in the public mental health system, we control our data in Los Angeles County, and we have 2 server sites. One of them is local in Los Angeles County. One of them is located in another state, but we own the data, we own the site, and what happens is exactly what you're talking about. If there's a problem in one location, that information gets pulled. Now, if there's something catastrophic nationwide, we're all in trouble.
It's good to control your local data, but it's good to distribute it geographically.
Right, but we can do that in a closed system.
Yeah, and I just want to comment on that. And in the mention of what the cloud is just a server, a computer that's located off-site, that's probably not in the city of Burbank.
Right.
However, from personal, speaking from professional experience, I was in the IT world for almost 20 years, a senior IT consultant for a big managed service provider, and I built servers for a web hosting company. So I know there's security measures and certifications that you have to qualify for in order to be able to retain critical and sensitive information. So with that, Chief, can we get the IT rep here to tell us more about the security?
Good evening, Commissioners. Gary Skanian, Assistant CIO from IT. As far as servers go, and the data storage of servers, we do have servers on-prem. We do have a lot of storage on-prem on the premises, but as a lot of applications are modernizing and they're going to the cloud, it's a software as a service. And so the Axons and Versaterms are not available to be on-prem. That way, there's security controls in place. There's also geographically placed servers. So, at the mercy of if any data has been breached, there's audit, there's logging, there's security controls in place. Any other
certifications that you guys have to require to meet to be able to retain that data? I know the chief mentioned it before.
I think what I referenced during the last, the June 2nd discussion was being CJIS compliant, Criminal Justice Information System compliant, which is monitored by the Department of Justice.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah, and all these solutions are also FedRAMP certified, so federally authorized. We are meeting the CJIS requirements, the DOJ requirements. There's a lot of, multi-factor authentication in place to access this data. Everything is logged. Even in our Axon, solution, we have our own logging within our services with our own control. But at the same time, if any breach has been done, then it's Axon's responsibility to let the department and agency know.
Thank you, sir. Any questions?
Just a general question, you may not have this answer now, but are there systems that deal with the public's private information that employees of the city can access without being on a Burbank City server or having gone through some sort of portal? Do we use any services like that?
As far as, so the department has a lot of user-generated data that is still on-prem. It's on our local storages. The police department's network is totally isolated from the rest of the city's network. It's not accessible from the public point of view or the rest of the city department's point of view. So think of the police department's network is on its own island with no access from any other, department or the public.
But hypothetically speaking, I guess the question I'm asking is if the department were using a tool that it had to log into, do any of those logins exist outside of that enclave, or would they still have to be going through some sort of single sign-on on a Burbank system first?
Yeah, they still have to go through single sign-on. If they are local on the police network, they do single sign-on. A lot of the systems require multi-factor. With our CJIS requirement from the DOJ, we did implement YubiKeys. So having that physical key is what gets you access into the police network
I
and
guess
all
I
the
ask
data.
because If there were some vendor third-party system that we were using where we had, a user account that was live, but that person was no longer with the department, could they access that directly, or would they still have to go through some sort of city system first?
No, they don't have to go through a city system, so to say. So, for instance, the police department, to access any of the data remotely, if they want to VPN in, virtual private network, connect into the network, or if they want to access any of the data, they need to have that key in hand along with a multi-factor authentication on their phone. So they are not going through city systems, they're going directly into their own firewall, into their own network.
That's great, thank you.
Thank you, Gar. So I guess what we can do is we only have less than 5 minutes left. So Gina, what are you thinking? Are we just moving this item, or, because it seems like there's more recommendations that James wants to give.
I think you should try to finish this item, but
Okay.
clearly we're going to have to move the rest of the agenda items.
Okay.
And my understanding is the reason why we have to stop at 8 is because the public loses access to us.
Right.
Online, the
Online.
camera system stops, and that's why we have a hard stop at 8 o'clock.
Okay.
So
Okay, if I just fly through the rest of the recommendations, okay, I'm going to get it out of the way. The second is, and these are very, very quick, these are also very expensive, and it's not just enough to have the access to the data locally, but if we had a local data scientist, this will result in increased local costs, but establishes a higher ethical standard than the current systems allow. A local intelligence center, but all of the data is held locally with professionals that know how to access the data as needed and be able to navigate that. I would also like to make sure that we're going through, and when we collect data, we're identifying the value of information for analytics, research, and investigation. They're doing that right now, but having a data scientist might be able to help with that as well. The last piece that I've got, and this is an open one, and this is something that we're going to continue to talk about, is how can we influence companies on the ethics of technology that we are either using, entrusting in, or becoming, or that are becoming standards of practice. We are where we are in large part because a lot of the data, including Flock, has become a national standard of practice, whether we like it or not. The example that I wanted to give is I was telling my wife it feels like the toothpaste is out of the tube. Her response is we need to figure out collectively how to brush our teeth differently because we can't necessarily get it back in. And that's a concern. So how do we work with this technology, and how do we set safeguards around it, ethical safeguards around it as well? Those are my primary concerns.
I'm done. Okay. So as far as your recommendations, did you want us to just couple that all together? or-
We have to decide whether we recommend that as well. I don't know, honestly, I don't know if we'll have time to really get into that. These are my opinions as a commissioner. This is the work that I've pulled together.
Sure.
We've gotten some feedback on it and everything. But the most important thing for me in doing this is it's not necessarily making a decision. It's making sure the information is on the record, so it can be discussed. This meeting is being recorded. We have minutes from the meeting as well. We can refer back to this, just like I've referred back to other meetings as well. What we haven't done up until this point is be able to have this level of depth of conversation about it. So I really appreciate the commissioners for even allowing this to be agendized. That's where our power is at, that we can have the discussion, we can put things on record.
Right. No, and I appreciate that. I mean, what I would have suggested if I was here last month would be to see how we can make that connection to the Burbank Police Department, because we discussed a lot of topics today, but I was trying to figure out how do we directly relate that to what Burbank PD is doing. And since they're avoided the discussion, I wouldn't feel comfortable giving a recommendation without having input from them. I just wouldn't feel responsible as a commissioner to do that. So I think that what we can do in the future, if there are items that you do want to discuss and talk about, we can always agendize and bring them back.
Everything I've talked about today is either information that Burbank is actively using, engaged in, or wrestling with. So these are all directly related to the operations of the Burbank Police Department.
Right, okay.
Mr. Chair, if I can make a recommendation in the interest of time, you don't have to finish even this item tonight. If you feel like you have not had enough time, or if you want, and we haven't even gotten to future agenda items, right? So some of this stuff that we didn't get to tonight, we'll kick over to the next meeting. Plus, you already have the annual RIPA report scheduled for the next meeting. So there are topics to discuss, so we don't have to go through future agenda items tonight in the 1 minute and 30 seconds we have left. And if you feel like you want to continue this discussion because you haven't had enough time to really vet out the recommendations, we can also kick this over to the next meeting
Make a
and
motion
re-agendize it.
that we pull this over to the next meeting, and then we
You want to make that motion?
add the agenda.
Paul's making it right now.
Well, go for it. Paul motions, Michael seconds, and let's go for a roll call. Do we need a roll call for that?
Commissioner Chapman?
Yes.
Commissioner Coombs?
Yes.
Commissioner Elman?
Yes.
Commissioner Hakopian?
Yes.
Chair Hakopian, sorry.
Yes, that's okay.
Commissioner Wenzel?
She's
I'm
absent.
sorry. Commissioner McKenna?
Yes.
Commissioner Hartunian?
I mean, we're against a hard stop, so yes. Not much of a choice.
Wonderful, everyone. Thank you. The motion passes. We'll carry on to the next meeting. And so, Gina, so next, do we want to go ahead and go into introduction of new agenda items, or do we want to, do a recutting of a day?
Yeah. Well, we have agenda items for the next meeting, we don't have to go through it again. The next meeting, we'll probably just state the next meeting.
Right.
I asked the chief if he had any brief
None.
announcements. He said we can skip over that tonight as well. I just have concerns now that our viewing public, as of right now, I don't even know if they are able to see what we're talking about right now. So my suggestion would be to go ahead and adjourn to the next meeting.
Okay.
This is the last meeting before Neighborhood Watch?
Or National Night Out.
National
Night Out.
Correct. National Night Out, August 4th.
We might want to mention that before we leave.
And one thing I also want to mention, Gina, is usually around August is when we select the new officers. And do we want to, can we agendize that, or do you want us to?
Staff will put it on the agenda.
Perfect, okay. Sounds good. All right, without any further comments or concerns, meeting is adjourned.
Thank you.
Let's go.